Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Sequester podcast. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me today is Brent. How you doing, Brent?
I'm doing great. It's just me, and only me. I think I'm enough, Taran, tonight.
Are you?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
I'll try not to get the chat all riled up. It's what I seem to do.
I guess so. I saw that we were coming right after some Survivor coverage, and I did see at the end there that you were leading some pitchforks.
Just a few people responded to me. It was just a little bit of fun, a little bit of shade. Again, I have the same problem where I say something funny, I type it in the chat, and then people reading in the chat are they see it as an attack, and then I'm like, it's not an attack, it was just a little fun shade, but then it comes off as really mean spirited, and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it like that. So anyway, that's where I'm at.
Oh boy. Well, we are here to talk about Sequester, and I believe this is episode 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, episode 10.
10. And I gotta say, again, I feel like this was a good episode. I feel like we've lost Erica.
Yep.
We've lost the person who I felt like it was just it was a roadblock. They kept running into the roadblock over and over. It's finally gone, and I feel like the game really did open up in this episode.
It really did. It was a fantastic episode of Sequester. There was so much shifting and alliance building and alliance breaking. People thought they were voting together, and then they would change their minds 5 minutes later. It was really, really fun. And I told Audrey that this is why I fell in love with Sequester in the first place, was all of these people gaming the shit out of the house and really going into the vote. I had no idea who was going home. I had an idea of who I thought was going to go home, but I was not sure of it. And I thought there were at various times throughout the show, and it's amazing to me. Again, they had 15 minutes to strategize, but you wouldn't know that from the episode. It was like a 45, 50-minute episode, and they managed to cram every conversation that happened into this episode. And all of those conversations to me were really important, because by the end of it, I think that half the house had been brought up as a potential target. I thought at various different times that maybe Jessica or Jayla or Dustin or Zach might have the votes to go home. And so it's interesting who ended up actually being eliminated in this episode, because I don't think that person's name was ever brought up until the very end, and even then only one person voted against them. So it was a fantastic episode of Sequester, and I really do feel like that we are seeing what can happen to the show when there's not one big bad still left in the game. So maybe that's something to look at postseason.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I think that what I loved about this episode is that it felt to me like 15 minutes of live feeds from Big Brother extrapolated in by cutting it out so that you can follow each thread individually, right? It was like double eviction Big Brother, only we see every thread every time someone goes to another room. We know that we're going to get cut to that room, and I felt like I was able to follow exactly what was happening. That first they all started in the same room. It was like a well executed sort of choreographed thing here. It was like I was watching 1917 Sequester, and
I like that reference.
And so they're all in one room, then they split into two groups, and so we hear one group first, then we hear what the other group was doing while that other group was talking, and then we get the mixing of the groups, and we go and we see each thing. I thought it was great. I love it. I love feeling like I'm seeing it all play out. I'm not missing anything, and that I feel like I understand the narrative of what happened and when. I loved it.
Yes, I totally understood the narrative. Also, this felt like the episode after the double eviction on Big Brother, where they fill in all the holes about what really happened the night and tried to build a coherent story about what you did and didn't see. So I really love this episode. Kudos to Audrey and anybody else who helped her on the editing of this episode. I'm sure it was not easy to, edit the episode in a coherent manner and also splice in all of the confessionals at the appropriate points and anything funny you want to include, and the game mechanics of the fact that there was no twist itself. Everything was just masterfully done. Great job.
Yes. So what we're gonna get here, we just lost Erica, and so the start of the episode, we're gonna see that Jess is going to come in. She has defeated Erica, and everybody is giving us a standing ovation. Everybody is very pleased about this, including even Tori, who was like, I mean, I was gonna work with her, but I feel like for Tori, I feel like she was like, you know what? Erica is inevitable. She is like Thanos. She is inevitable. I can't do anything about it. And then all of a sudden, Erica was gone. She was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess we can. Yeah. I mean, that's what I wanted, was a game without Erica. Okay.
Yeah, I will say, this is the last thing I'll say about Erica on this podcast, all right? So it just drives me flippin' batty that the whole reason that Erica was ultimately targeted over the course of a few episodes was because of a fuck-up by Jayla. Like, okay, let's go back in time and remember that it was Cameron and Zach and Tori and Dustin, okay? And they were targeting Jayla. And then they eventually got her out during the episode before date night, right? And they got her out. They voted her out. She challenged Thomas. She won that battle match. She comes back in, but that was the possession round. She thinks now at this point, and we think, oh, well, Jayla and company, Jayla, Jessica, Erica, the three queens of Sequester, they have the votes to do something. And remember, she was close with Erica at that point, to the point where she was so butthurt that Erica voted against her when she stood up. Of course, she crazily forgot about the twist in play. So then date night happens. They don't actually have a date until very late in the episode, which I think, I don't know if it was random or not, but if production had any hand in forming the order of the dates for this episode, that was a massive mistake on their part, because by the end of it, Jayla is so far down the line that she's like, oh, I forgot about the twist, but I still hate you anyway. Like, all of that hate towards Erica and dislike and I need you out of the game had just culminated to a point where she could not let go of it anymore. And you have to wonder what would have happened, what Erica's fate would have been had Jayla and Erica had an early date, and Erica would have been able to rectify that mistake from Jayla's early on and say, no, girl, like, I'm with you. Like, we're in this together. And then Jayla wouldn't have been like, I feel like Jayla got wedded to the idea of getting Erica out on a mistake, but then she was so embarrassed at the end by it. She was just like, well, I guess I'm just going to do that. And then she just kept doing that because, like, what she had said to Erica, like, I'm going to vote for you here. Some of that dislike had sort of like fermented, and to the point where she couldn't go back in time anymore and fix her own mistakes. So it just chafes at me that Erica went out of the game basically based on a mistake from Jayla that never would have happened, because remember, they got Thomas out and then they got Cameron out through the battle matches. So they would have had the votes to do whatever they want. Like, those three queens would have had the votes to do whatever they want, but because Jayla was so put out with Erica over a mistake, it never came to be. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, it seemed to me like I did feel like I got a little bit more insight into what Jayla was thinking in previous rounds, when it appears that she took this idea of a Final Four deal that was made during date night seriously. Right. And so I think that was part of it. I think that she was mad at Erica, and she used that to get in with these people, or think that she got in with these people, made a deal thinking, okay, now I have a Final Four deal. This whole Erica thing worked out for me. Then finds out it was a misunderstanding, and she's like, well, I don't care anymore because I like this position better than before. I think that's what it was. And of course, I think that perhaps, I don't know where Jayla's head is at now. We'll talk about it. But it seems to be somewhere in between the clouds and La La Land. So we'll figure it out.
Yeah, see, when I say stuff like that, Brent's a hater. He's just saying mean things. He's saying Jayla is stupid. But you say her head's between, like, the clouds and the sky, and it's like, oh, well, that's okay to say. So yeah, she's freaking nuts. Like, let's be honest.
I think when the episode that we're talking about has an edit of Jayla where she's literally, like, the camera is like zooming back and forth on her, like rocking back and forth, like, I'm like, oh my God. We'll talk about
you have to. I don't know if you're going to understand this reference, but I hope people in the chat do. Like, have you ever seen the movie Beaches? Okay, well, there's a point where Cece and Hillary, like, they're still in New York. It's early in the movie. They're very poor, so they're at the laundromat, and they're talking, and they're playing gin. And right after they get done having their conversation, there's this old man, and he's looking into the spinning dryer, and he sees his own reflection, and all of a sudden, the old man just goes, And then they start cackling because of it. That's exactly what I thought of when Jayla did that, because I'm like, girl, you are crazy.
Yeah,
crazy.
Well, so everybody's happy that Eric is gone. Jess is there, and now we have determined this round, no twist. It's just a straight up vote. And so Jayla's gonna kick off the episode by saying, "All right," and. Let me be clear here. So I was watching this. I was like, I think I was eating dinner or something, but I missed like 15 seconds. And so Jayla's now talking about how like this is what we should be doing, that I deserve to win because of this and so and so. And I'm like, okay, so the twist this round is that they have to make their case, each one of them. And then Dustin all of a sudden is like, we don't have to do this. Jayla just said that we should do this. And I was like, wait, what? And I had to rewind. Right. And so her idea was just like, let's all stay here. We don't need to run around. Let's stay here and we'll all just talk it out. And so she makes this big pitch about, what she's done in the game, I think. And I got to be real. I also, like Dustin, couldn't, like, even on the second try, was like, what is she saying exactly? And so she makes this big pitch, and at the end of it, she goes, and with all that said, I know who I'm voting for.
Yeah, it was like she wanted to have her cake and eat it too. She wanted to stand up and tell, like, it felt like Survivor 1 when people didn't understand alliances and they were literally just voting off people based on their worth. It seems like that Jayla wanted to state her worth in the game and state it to her other players and say, well, I do the dishes and I cut oranges and, like, I'm a good person and I've always put all of my cards on the table and I'm loyal to Jessica, so you guys know that. And then let's all put all our cards on the table. And then when it came time to say who she was going to vote for, she wouldn't even do that. It was just nonsensical. It was nuts, and I can't even believe that they had 15 minutes to strategize. I can't even believe that they wasted like a minute and a half of waiting for Jayla to get done. Like, I couldn't even put up with her when she was like in front of the room saying stuff, because it literally it had nothing to do with the game. It was none of it made any sense about like why you should vote somebody out or why somebody should stay. It was just Jayla talking to be Jayla, which fine, but that is not what it's called for at this point in the final 6.
And I gotta say again, Dustin, he was killing me in the confessionals. I was loving it. I don't even remember exactly. It was like I could say let's go bowling or something. I don't remember what it was, but
it was a chat. Yeah, I forget. It was like he said somebody could say I could do this, and he's like, fuck that, I don't want to do that. I want to do something else. I think it was paintballing. That's what it was. Paintballing. Yeah. Let's go paintballing. Everybody, let's go paintballing. He's like, fuck that. I'm a grown man. I don't have to go paintballing. I'm gonna go do something else.
He's got some good confessionals. And so as soon as Jayla's finished, they're all just like, okay, great. we're gonna go now.
Yeah. Is that
all right?
Deuces. Yeah. See ya.
And so Tori takes the lead here. She grabs Dustin, she grabs Zach, and she says, hey, Hunter, trust me, and then books it out of there. And so that was not the right play with Hunter. No. Because as we know, Hunter does not like being excluded from conversations.
Yeah, if she didn't learn her lesson the first time, it was quite evident this time, because if there was somebody that you wanted to say, look, I got you, don't worry, and then skip town with 2 other people, Hunter was not the guy to do that with. I feel like that she would have had a better chance, ironically, with Jayla of all people, by getting Jayla to vote against Hunter here. I feel like that would have been the best case scenario. You know that Jayla and Jessica are not going to turn on each other, and so if you could convince Jayla that, hey, we're going to get a Hunter here, but I got you, girl. And I've always been wanting to work with you. I feel like that might have been better. And she might have, in fact, screw just going to the other room with Zach and Dustin. Why not just bring Jayla to the room together and say, let's all 4 go together. We're going to save Jess this round. She's not going to be in danger. And then I'll side, if she wants, she can secretly tell Jayla, look, I'll side with you at the final 5 because I want to get rid of Dustin. And I know he's trying to get rid of me. So don't worry. We've got the numbers at the final 5. Let's just get rid of Hunter here. But it was not meant to be. And that's what set things in motion for Hunter to get all of a sudden some real conviction in his game, which I very much liked, by the way, to the point where he's now speaking with Jayla and Jessica while Tori is talking with Dustin and Zach, and Hunter is talking to them like, look, we three have to stick together here or we are done. You can see how close those three people are. So I really feel like it helped like make the lines in the sand a lot thicker than they necessarily needed to be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily agree that Jayla was the right option here. I feel like Jayla, before she even started her speech, had her mind set on who she was voting for, and it was never going to change, just based on her behavior throughout the episode. So I feel like trying to get her to change her mind is a losing battle. But I do think that pulling two other people, there's 6 people total, 6 votes, and I think that pulling 2 people with you, meaning 3, leaving 3 in the other room, is not the right move. You need 4 votes to make a majority, and so I don't love the idea of leaving that out, because there is a version of this that does play out how Hunter immediately reacts, which is it becomes a 3-3 vote, and now you're going to a wheel, and that's not really ideal for Tori, considering she's not really one of the potential targets here. So, but Hunter, yes, is immediately going to react and say, all right, you two, I will go to the wheel for you. And so for those that may not understand, the wheel is essentially rocks in Survivor, that if there is a tie vote twice in a row, then they spin the wheel of something or other. And misfortune. And I think it just, has their faces on it or something?
Yeah, I don't know if that's practically the way it works, but like for the edited TV purposes, that's what it looked like, a slot machine last year, where like your face has to come up 3 times in a row for the wheel to pick you. But the important thing to remember about the wheel is that the 2 people, like in Survivor, the 2 people who are voted for are immune from the wheel, and the 4 people on the outside who caused the tie and didn't break the tie the second time around are the people that are placed on the wheel. So if you're part of the contingent that doesn't break the tie the second time around, you are definitely in danger from the wheel.
Yeah, and so I found this really interesting because Hunter is in a position, he has to do this, right? He was just left out of that. So he, the votes could fall on him, the votes could fall on one of Jess or Jayla, but more importantly, if those votes do fall on him, he needs to make sure that Jess and Jayla go to the wheel for him. Otherwise, he's screwed. And so he needs to convince them that the 3 of them need to stick together. If they do, then he's in an okay spot. At worst case scenario, he goes to the wheel and he's got a 1 in 4 chance of being the person going out. That's not terrible at this point. But the problem is that he screwed these 2 people over, Jess in particular, over in the last 3 votes. He's continually told them he was going to do one thing and then went and did something else. So as he's telling them he's going to go to the wheel for them, I was in Jess's position before he spoke to us in the confessional. I was like, is he being truthful right now?
Right.
And I did get a sense that he was. I felt like it was genuine, but Hunter is a bit of a rat, and so there was a bit of doubt in me. Then we get to the confessional where he says, I'm being truthful here. Look, I am a self-interested player, and that's why I need to do this. And I was like, I fully believe that reason. But I never heard him say that reason to Jess. And I think this is where he faltered, because he keeps assuring her, I will go to the wheel. I will go to the wheel. He says it over and over and over. It's essentially saying, trust me, trust me. And, in a situation like this, when somebody says, trust me, that's going to set off alarm bells for me. I want reasons. And Hunter's a guy who has reasons. And if he had told Jess, look, I understand. I was doing what was in my self-interest at the time, and that's what I'm doing right now, because this is how it makes sense that it's the best move for my game right now. And if he explained that, I feel like Jess would have been more receptive to this idea.
Yeah, I agree as well. He needed to state the reasons for her to see, because, as you said, he has the reasons to show her. And she would have been like, look, I may not trust you, but I believe that these reasons are true. And so I can go with that. I feel like this was, like, in the early days of Survivor, Probst would always talk about the fact that you have an invoice to pay at Tribal Council. And I felt like in some ways this was what Hunter was dealing with here. He had an invoice to pay for all of his, for lack of a better word, chicken shit decisions, or you can argue game decisions that he's made over the course of the last 2 to 3 episodes, where he said he was going to vote one way, and then when crunch time came, he didn't vote the way that he said. He led the charge to vote out Erica during date night. When push came to shove, he didn't vote for Erica. Same thing happened last round. So, I really feel like he was fighting against his own past misdeeds at this point, and that's why he was having so much difficulty with Jessica.
Yes. That said, if I am Jess or Jayla in this moment, I do probably feel like I don't have a lot of other options because, as I mentioned, that Tori runs off with 2 people, says to a third person, "Trust me," and that leaves Jess and Jayla completely. Basically, you know for a fact that in that conversation, pretty as much as you can that it's one of the 2 of you, and that's not good. And you need 3 votes, and so you might as well just tell Hunter what he wants to hear, and hopefully he does vote with you at this point. So that's what they're doing. They're figuring out who to vote for. They decide they want to go after Zach, and I hated this plan because their plan was essentially convince them that we're going after Dustin so that Zach plays his LOS on Dustin, then our votes go on Zach, and Zach goes home. Another important thing to realize here, this is the last round that Zach can play his LOS. So basically, he should be playing this for himself. If he feels anywhere near any suspicion, I believe you have to play it before the vote if you want to be safe from the vote, and then if you are safe from the vote, you're completely protected from being chosen for a battle match. So he is in a position where he needs to make a decision. Do I want to play it before the vote to make sure that I don't get voted out? Or do I want to keep it for in case I get chosen for a battle match? Obviously, the ideal is not having to play it for the vote, being able to keep it for the battle match. But if he gets anywhere near a suspicion that there might be any kind of votes falling on him, then he will play it for himself. And so why not just go after Dustin in reality? Because then I agree with you. You don't have to worry about Zach using the LOS that he can't use in the next round anyway. And if Zach stays, the LOS can't be used in the next round anyway, so it's not like you're getting an LOS out or anything like that. I think the only reason you would do this is if you were really scared of Zach in a battle match and you needed maybe 2 shots at him. I don't know, but either way, that means one of you is going home in this.
Yeah, I feel like this was a nonsensical plan to begin with, mainly because Zach is never going to give his LOS to Dustin to protect him from the vote and then leave himself open to be picked for a battle match. Like, he's always going to hold on to the LOS for the second part of the elimination after the vote and being for the battle match selection. So there's no way he's going to give up his LOS here. Dustin is on the board. Let's vote for Dustin. I'm glad they eventually came around to that, but it took them a long time to get there.
Yes, so that's the plan. The plan right now for those 3 is to vote to get rid of Zach. So then we flip to the other 3, and that's Tori, Dustin, and Zach discussing what to do. Now, first, Tori and Dustin need to kind of hash it out over what happened in the previous vote, because Dustin was really advocating that they get rid of Erica, and Tori was saying no and wanted to go after Jess instead. And so Tori and Zach ended up voting for Jess to be eliminated, and obviously that didn't work out because Erica was still gone, but it told Dustin that Tori and Zach not doing what I want them to do, are we really still on the same page? And what we get from Dustin is that, okay, I'm willing to work with them for this one more round, but next round, I gotta get rid of Tori. I do not trust her. That whole thing was a bit sketchy to me.
Yeah, I don't know who I side with on this one. I sort of see it from both sides because I feel like that Dustin played pretty badly during the round that he was ultimately safe there at the final 7 because he drew the greed card and got to be safe for the entire round. But he sort of dictated the decision, like, no, we're voting for Erica. That's what we're doing. We're voting for Erica. And even Tori told us in confessional last week that, I'm trying to get him to see maybe we could potentially go after Jess, but it's like, no, we're voting for Erica. And I don't care. You even saw flashbacks to Dustin saying, look, I'm safe, dude. I don't even care, man. What? And I've said this before. When people are safe, they seem to play worse often because they feel like there are no consequences to what they're doing. Obviously, there are consequences, namely now. So they're trying to work out who they're voting for here. And they eventually, as you said, they come to a consensus of this is why we did what we did. And it's also important to note that Zach was in on that as well. It wasn't just Tori. Dustin, his ride or die, I guess his ride or die. Zach, I guess that's the person that Dustin would probably want to take to the end is Zach. Zach, he had 2 votes and neither one of them went to Erica during the last round. And I feel like that Dustin really was shocked that neither one of his quote unquote closest allies did what he ultimately said that he wanted them to do, although he eventually got his way anyway and Erica going home. So they decide that they're going to create a majority here, but they realize they only have 3 votes and their decision is, well, what are we going to do? It seems to me, Taran, that it was a toss-up between, because I heard at various times Tori talking about Hunter, how she seems to have a good relationship with Hunter. They got that Oklahoma thing. And also, Dustin is pretty adamant about the fact that he could get Jess on board for a potential Final Four. So it seems that Jayla is the likely target here.
Yeah, I think that she's a little more threatening. I have to imagine part of this as well is that for Tori would be worried that Jess would choose her because there is a little bit of open sort of knowledge that they've been going after each other a little bit. And Jayla explicitly said that she knows who she's voting for, so she probably has a set idea of who it's going to be. If they know that that person is Zach, if they have an inkling that that person is Zach, then that's great for them because Zach doesn't have much of a say in this. And if Jayla chooses Zach, then that's perfect. So I have to imagine that came into play at least a little bit as well. And so Jayla is the choice for them. And so it does appear right now that it's going to be 3 votes on Jayla, 3 votes on Zach. Will Zach play the LOS? If not, will they go to the wheel? If so, who's going to be the one going out? But that is not what we're going to land on because Hunter wants to have a conversation with he has a conversation with. Wait, how does this work out? He talks to Jess first, right?
Yeah. He's having they flash back to him having a conversation with Jess, and then like Hunter eventually goes to the 3.
Hunter goes to the 3.
Yeah, he goes to the 3, and they talk with him about what they eventually want him to do. He swears loyalty to them.
They fill him in on the plan, and he agrees to it.
Yes, and they also want him. They don't want to leave Jessica out in the cold here, so they tell him to go get Jessica and very publicly like let her in on the deal about what's going on, so that Jessica doesn't feel left out. So that's where he eventually. So then Hunter goes to the other room where Jessica and Jayla are talking, and he lets them in on the fact 2 things. Number 1, I've been brought here to quote unquote bring you in, Jessica, on the plan about what's going on. Yes, Jayla, it is you. They are voting for you, but don't worry about that right now. It's going to be fine. So he's going to go take Jessica upstairs. He walks past the 3 people, goes upstairs to have a conversation with Jessica about what's going on. Meanwhile, Jayla is by herself, and she doesn't much like being told that it's me, like they're voting for me. And so she decides to, like, she sits by herself for a second, and then she decides to start walking around the house. And I'm like, oh my God, she's going to blow this plan wide open. Like, I feel like Hunter's got it well in hand here, and Jayla's going to screw it up. So Jayla walks over to the 3 people, and she's just like, so are you guys voting for me? And they're like, actually, it hasn't been decided yet.
We're seriously now still deciding. It's undecided.
We're still deciding, yes. And then she's like, well, if it's me, you can tell me. Like, I get it. Like, just tell me. Like, I've always been open and honest with my shit. That's how you guys know. And by the way, this is a fabulous moment from Jayla. I'm going to give her a lot of shit throughout this episode, but this was the funniest shit ever. So Tori's like, look, I just want to know from you, like, so you have said in the past that you're not open to voting for Jessica. Jayla, yes. So Tori's like, so is that still true? You're still not open to voting for Jessica? And Tori's like, no, I'm not open to voting for Jessica. Tori's like, well, who are you open to voting for? Taran? Who's she open to voting for?
I'm not saying.
Well, she
says,
yes,
you two.
Yeah, I'm open to voting for these 2. Sorry, I was trying to give you an alley oop and you totally missed it, Taran.
I was prepared for the silence that came after that.
Right, I remember. Okay, yeah, she turns to Dustin and Zach and she's like, I'm open to voting for them too. Like right in front of Tori, right in front of Dustin, right in front of Zach, and it was just great.
Just silence.
Right,
they were just
so
like,
great. Holy shit! Yeah.
I don't know what to say to that.
I don't know what to say.
I don't know where this conversation goes.
Right, I'm very much like Adam in the chat, where if I flash back to Kat during Big Brother 21, like, are you bitches conspiring against me? Like, I wanted Jayla to walk up to them and say that, like, are you conspiring against me here? Because that's what's really happening, right? So that was fantastic. They try and do a little damage control with Jayla, and like, I can't remember what happens ultimately at the end of that scene. I think they just cut and we get a conversation with Hunter and Jessica who are talking upstairs.
Yes, and so right away, Hunter again is going to reassure, I will go to the wheel. I will go to the wheel. Jessica's like, I don't know if I can trust you, dude. He's like, no, seriously, I will go to the wheel. Like, that's gonna.
I wish he would have realized, like, look, she has reason not to trust me at this point. I need to give her something else to let her know that, yeah, I've been a snake in the past, and I am being a snake now because I am a self-interested player, but I'm not going to snake her, and here's why it makes sense for me not to snake her. Like, don't you see that, Jessica? But he never really gave her a reason, at least that we saw, that would have made sense to Jessica.
Yes. And so they talk about like, so what should I be telling them? And she says, I am not willing to vote for Jayla. Say that I am not willing to vote for Jayla, but I am willing to vote for Hunter or sorry, Dustin or Zach. And so Hunter is like, okay, I think I can talk to Tori and maybe get her on board with this. And just I mean, all right, it's like that's what you just say. I'm not willing to vote for Jayla. It's like, all right. So he goes and he gets Tori, and the first thing he tells Tori is she's willing to vote for Jayla. I was so confused about that. Did he?
Yeah,
I was like, did he mishear her?
I did. I was the same thing. Like, did he mishear her? I was like, did I mishear that? So then I rewound it. And no, that's not what he said. So I wasn't exactly sure what the plan here was. I will say this though, that I'm glad that Tori still has somewhat of a relationship with Hunter, where they are able to build this bridge, because ultimately that's where this round is going to be decided. Is the fact that Tori and Hunter are able to trust each other here. I also like the fact that Jessica is adamantly loyal to Jayla. I very much appreciate this. I like the ride or dies. I mean, that you may not think that it's necessarily your brand of game, Taran, or maybe the chat doesn't like it, but I do like the fact that she is like, no, I'm not voting for Jayla, and Jayla's not voting for me. Like, I like the fact that they are so loyal to each other, and they are willing to go to they're willing to go to the end of the game together or die trying. So I'm very much cool with that, and it was good TV, and I liked it.
I mean, and strategically, it makes sense. I mean, Jess doesn't have anybody else, and if Jayla is going to be loyal to her, then that's extremely valuable in a game of 6 people. Going into 5 people, having one person that's definitely on your side, insanely valuable. So letting them go at that point is probably not in your best interest. That's one of the reasons why I have a problem with some of what Tori was doing over the course of the episode. So Hunter is going to go to Tori, and this is one of those harebrained schemes that feels like it shouldn't work, because he's going to go to Tori and he's going to tell her, okay, look, Jess is willing to vote for Jayla, but she would rather vote for one of the guys, Zach or Dustin. And if you can get on board with this, like, what she really wants is for us 3 to vote together. She wants to make this happen. And Tori seems to be buying this a little bit, and Hunter really tries to seal the deal by saying, and another thing, I heard Zach and Dustin say your name on the couch earlier when Jayla was talking. I swear on the Bible, I swear to you, I heard them say your name. And she's like, don't bring that up if you're lying to me. Like, if you're lying to me.
Yeah, that means something to her. Yeah. And I have to say, like, as someone who follows reality TV for a long time, or who has followed reality TV for a long time, the Bible thing, it definitely would carry more weight with me than not. And but just because, I feel like your upbringing and your social dynamics, all of that would color how you view this particular thing. And Tori's like, look, you better not lie to me about that if you're going to bring that up. If you're going to use that, it better be the truth. And he's like, yeah, it's totally the truth. Then he tells us in confessional, basically, that it is a version of the truth that he feels comfortable enough putting his hand on the Bible for, but he doesn't necessarily know what they were talking about. He just knows that they said that her name. And I have a feeling that Hunter actually did know that, even though they said Tori when they were secretly talking, Dustin and Zach on the couch while Jayla was giving her spiel at the beginning of the episode, I have a feeling he knew that they just wanted to talk to Tori, not that they actually wanted to target her. The funny part is, though, that Hunter is actually correct here in that Dustin, even though Dustin wasn't talking about that at the time, targeting Tori, Dustin actually is thinking about targeting Tori very soon, as in the next round, as in like an hour from now. So he might actually get something out of this, even though it's not necessarily true in the way he means it.
Yes, which is interesting. So yeah, and I love that we flash back to what he heard on the couch, and we see
great
for
editing.
ourselves. Yes,
fucking love it, Audrey. Great job.
Yes, we see for ourselves that they did say Tori's name, but it was not in any bad context whatsoever. But he is swearing on the Bible that he heard the name, and there's a lot of talk of like essentially, look, don't vote for me in the end if I'm lying to you right now.
Yeah, he does that a lot. That was the one thing he did use that I liked, where he was like, look, if I'm lying to you right now, I'm giving you permission. You don't have to vote for me at the end. You can bring this up to me. If I get to the final 2, you do not have to vote for me. And in a game like Sequester, where the only person who wins anything is the person who gets to the end and wins. That's the only person who wins any money. I really feel like that was something good. I liked him saying that here. Also, the one thing we missed that Jayla said when Jayla went up to the three of them and was asking him, like, is it me? We also got a flashback from Audrey to the point where it was on date night. And this is what you talked about earlier, Taran, where Jayla was like, I know I can get you to the top 4, come to the winning side. And apparently in her mind that was like a deal that she made with these 3 people to get to the top 4, but in reality it carried no weight whatsoever. And I'm actually like, I'm embarrassed for Jayla that she brought it up at this point, that like that didn't mean anything. Like, you could tell looking at those conversations, those people were looking at you like, yeah, girl, like, I'll meet you in the like I love Zach at this point in the flashback, because he was like, yeah, Jayla, I'll meet you in the top 4, see ya. Like, there was nothing to it, so I can't even believe she brought it up.
Yes, and so Hunter and Tori, they have the conversation. It seems like Tori, she's seemingly on board. She's like, you know what? I don't really trust Dustin. I would like to do something else. Like, maybe we can make this work. And so they agreed to the plan, and Hunter now needs to go, fill in Jess about, what's happening and where they need to go with this. But in the meantime, there have been other conversations happening. And that's mainly between Zach, Dustin, and Jess, who has now gone downstairs and is having a conversation with Zach about the fact that he essentially voted for her in the previous round, and he's going to try and deny it. He says, no. You think I voted for you? You don't understand.
Yeah, and this is another point in time.
I voted for myself.
Yeah, this is another point in time where I was living for the Jessica confessional here, because she's like, are you stupid enough to believe that this is actually, like, believable? Or are you stupid enough to believe that I would actually believe it? Because I know you're lying here. Like, just stop trying. So this is the point in time where Zach actually tries a little bit of jury management. Oh my God, Zach, who knew? And he tries to play the game a little and pretend that he actually didn't vote for Jessica here in the last round. He actually didn't vote for her. He voted for himself. And so he's trying to tell Jessica that in a way so that if Jessica is ultimately voted out, she's on the jury and she doesn't feel betrayed by him, and that she would ultimately vote for Zach. But of course, it totally blows up in his face because his story is totally unbelievable and Jessica knows it's absolute bullshit.
Yeah, and so it's a pretty innocent conversation apart from the fact that he's lying, but innocent in the sense that it's not about Tori.
Right.
However, Tori, after walking by them after finishing her conversation with Hunter, is going to run back to the wall and start to try to eavesdrop. And I could barely hear them as they were like microphones pointed at them. I was like, there's no way Tori hears them, and that ended up being the case. But she does hear she and her a lot, and so she is concerned that I guess of the 3 potential women that she is the one being talked about, especially because Hunter just put it in her head that that Dustin and Zach were saying her name in a bad way. And so this is where Tori gets a little bit too aggressive, I think, on this one. Yeah,
she's over her skis at this point, Taran.
Yeah, so she has it in her head that, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. Isn't this like the Julie Berry move from Vanuatu?
Oh, that takes me back.
Where like she basically bluffed that she knew about this in order to get Zach to admit it. So she goes to Zach immediately and she was like, I was just listening. I heard everything. So what? Tell me what you said.
But of course, there's nothing to say, and the worst person you can go to is Zach for a couple reasons. Number one, I don't think he's necessarily good under pressure, and number two, he's actually loyal to Tori. Like, there's no part of Zach that's voting against Tori here. He's actually pretty loyal to her. So I didn't like the fact that she went to him. I do enjoy the fact that when she went to him and eventually questioned Zach, she brought on the waterworks a little bit, although it did seem a little bit inauthentic. Again, it's so funny. She's Miss Authentic, but her crying didn't even seem authentic. And I have to feel like Zach didn't really like it. He didn't like Zach's actually loyal to Tori. I don't think he liked that his loyalty to her was being questioned at this point, because he was not disloyal.
Yeah, she was like, I heard everything.
He's like, and?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. What?
She's like, so? Like, so what? So what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, well, tell me what you said. Like, okay, I mean, I was saying because Jess was saying that I
You're
voted
lying
for
to
her.
me. You're lying.
She goes,
You're stumbling.
honey, you're stumbling. You're lying to me right now. What? Like Zach is like, she is just coming on very strong, and he's trying to like fumble out the words, and she is like, I knew it. You're lying to me. I felt like I was watching like a one of those like, oh, cops like forced a false confession out of somebody.
Right.
So I was ready for him to be like, okay, I said something. I just let me, please.
Let me go. Stop picking on me.
And so this is a really bad read on her part. She turns on the waterworks and she's like, please, Zach, just don't blindside me. Like, she's really trying to make all like uber sure that this is not going to happen, and I can understand that the paranoia is real, and if she feels like she can draw something out of Zach, which she probably could if there really was a plot in the works, then this is how she's going to get it out of him. But ultimately there wasn't anything here, and it does seem to really set some alarm bells ringing for Zach himself.
Yeah, I'm not even sure exactly what. I mean, I understood. First of all, I want to say something really quickly about the production. I remember watching this, and I remember how they do the taping of Sequester in the house, and they basically have, volunteers, former cast members a lot, who are going around with the cameras in the house. Really fantastic camera work by whoever did that, trying to make. I mean, that must be really hard to get the camera on Jessica and Dustin and Zach talking, but also make sure that you have Tori in the shot, but also not let Jessica and Dustin and Zach in on the fact that there's somebody who's listening in on their conversation. So well done on that part. Overall, this is what started the chain of events, in my opinion, that ultimately began with Tori considering voting for Dustin, because she does actually bring up to Zach, and this is where Zach starts to distrust her. Zach starts to distrust her a little bit, because she's like, actually, I've been thinking about voting for Dustin. Like, I just thought it was too much too soon. I realized they only have 15 minutes, and maybe time's going to be called, so she has to work fast. But goddamn, I mean, like, she goes up to him and basically accuses him of betraying her. He's not betraying her. Then she brings on the waterworks. Then she shuts down the waterworks. Then she says, look, I want to vote out your closest ally. Zach's head was spinning at this point, and how could it not be, Taran?
Yeah. What happened here is that Tori just hands down got played hard by Hunter, and then spun out of control this round. If she's not ultimately the person to leave this round, I think she probably goes into the next round completely weaponless and on the outs, and probably looking at being voted off again because of the mistakes that she makes here in this round. So I think it was sort of a fitting downfall here, because she really spirals out of control in terms of questioning Zach, who was basically her only hope. As soon as Cameron was gone, as soon as Erica was, we've been saying for a long time, Zach is her only hope at this point. And she really burned that as much as, maybe not as much as she could have, but pretty badly.
I feel like that. I was talking with Jessica offline from Sequester a week ago or so, and ultimately she talked about the fact that ultimately you have to trust somebody. Yeah, I mean, you may not want to work with this person, you may not want to work with this person, you may not trust the person that you're working with, but you have to pick somebody. You have to pick somebody to trust. And I don't understand why Tori was going to Zach. I mean, if she doesn't have Zach, she doesn't have anybody. Well, like, if she's getting voted off here, I don't know what she's doing.
I think that's the problem. I think that she never trusted Zach, because right from the beginning with Cameron, she was always about like, and I obviously she didn't trust Dustin even more. But I think the problem was that she didn't trust Zach with Dustin, and so that was why she wanted Jayla in instead of Dustin, or any female in instead of Dustin, because I think she was worried that Dustin would be able to pull Zach. Based on what we've seen in Zach's confessionals, that was never really true. That he was a lot more loyal to Tori than he was Dustin, and we saw that play out in the previous round, where he votes with Tori instead of with what Dustin wanted, and he echoed Tori's thoughts about how Dustin acted in that round, rather than siding with Dustin against Tori. And so I really feel like this was a misread that had been occurring over the course of weeks, really finally caught up to her, and was the weakness that allowed Hunter to come in and exploit it. And so that's why she is going to not trust Zach here. And even though Zach seems very against the idea of going for Dustin, she ends up being solidly, this is one of the last times we see her before the vote, that she is sticking with this plan. She is going to vote out Dustin. She's going for it.
Yeah, she's going to go for it, and this is where I remember eventually at the beginning of the night it was between Jayla and Jessica and Hunter. They were like, we're going to vote for Zach, but ultimately they get on board to sort of vote for Dustin, and then a whole split vote plan comes into play, and then time gets called. So I mean, maybe we can talk about that a little bit. But I thought it was some really fun, fantastic work. Here's the thing: if the episode had began and ended with the three people over here, Hunter, Jayla and Jessica, and then three people over here, Tori and Dustin and Zach, naming their respective targets, possibly going to the wheel. Nobody changes. The wheel comes. It happens. That would have been fantastic television. But we got all of this great shit after, which was even more fantastic. And then there was eventually, like I said, a split vote plan that comes into play. And into other people not trusting other people and voting off in stray directions, like, was just really, really fun to watch. So you can take it.
It was a beautiful piece of work by Hunter, who played the back and forth role, the double agent role, very well. He went back from each group telling them, like, oh, I was just with them, and they bought it. And he managed to get into the heads of one of the groups and flip them to his side to do his agenda against their own best interests. Great stuff from Hunter. So now that he knows that Tori is on board to vote for.
Yes, and it's, to be clear, the reason that Tori's on board to vote with Hunter here and trust him is not just because of the Oklahoma thing, but also because she gives us a confessional where, and this is the part where I sort of lost the plot a little bit. She was like, I feel like besides myself, Hunter is the next biggest threat in the game. And I was like, I didn't really buy that. I was like, maybe she means he's the most self-interested player left in the game, and he'll do what she wants him to do to possibly get to the end. But I thought that maybe she misspoke there, because there is no way, shape, or form where I think that Hunter is like up with Tori in terms of jury threat level. But maybe I'll be proven wrong.
Maybe. But Hunter needs to go inform Jess and Jayla about like what's happening, like what's now occurring here, because he knows that he has Tori on to Dustin. If he votes Dustin, okay, that's great. So he comes up with the idea, okay, well now, and this is where he maybe gets a little too crazy with this again. He says, well, now we'll split the vote. We'll go me and Tori on Dustin, and then we'll have Jayla and Jess vote for Zach. That way, no matter who the LOS is played on, we'll be able to revote to vote the other one out. And the reason this is too crazy is you're putting way too much faith in the fact that you just flipped Tori. And I get it. He did flip Tori, and his read was correct. But I think this is an unnecessary risk. There's so many reasons why Tori shouldn't go through with this, and why she might not have gone through with this. If she ends up voting with Dustin and Zach to get 3 votes on somebody, then that's it. You've split your vote. You can't even tie now.
I actually think he really opened the door for Tori to save her game at this point, and she didn't take the opportunity. So he got very lucky that this split vote plan actually kind of went through to the point where he got the result that he wanted. But I mean, we can talk about it. I'd like to save it to the end of the conversation, because I feel like that Tori made a mistake in ultimately siding with Hunter here, and she should have gone back to Dustin and Zach and voted the way that she was going to vote at the beginning of the episode. Since we're talking about it, let's just talk about it here. So I feel like Tori makes a mistake here. Hunter opens the door for it to be basically a 2-2-2 vote plan. I feel like what Tori should have done is go the Suri route and make it a 3-2-1 vote plan for Tori to side with Dustin and Zach, to stay with them, to stay loyal to them, so that Dustin doesn't feel betrayed. Tori, Zach, and Dustin stick together, vote for Jayla here. Jayla is the person who's eliminated. Jayla takes out her wrath on Dustin. Dustin and Jayla go to the battle match together. Tori is once again safe. But by becoming the betrayer here, Tori I'm talking about, then she sets herself up to be picked for the battle match, and that's why she's ultimately going to be eliminated during this episode, Taran.
And honestly, I think it could have been Dustin or Zach. I don't think it would have been Tori. She votes. Yeah. Jayla ends up voting for Zach. So that seemed to be the person that was in her head. So maybe she chooses Zach. Maybe she chooses Dustin. Either way, it's not Tori. She's, I think, the lowest person on Jayla's list, and Jayla, I think, is the person most likely to pick a guy over her. And so definitely do not like this move. Obviously, Dustin told us that he planned on coming for Tori in the next round, and that's not great. Getting Dustin out would have been okay here, but that would have again put Hunter in the swing vote role where he's choosing between Jess and Jayla or Tori and Zach, and I guarantee you he picks Jess and Jayla there, and that's not a good spot for her. But if she is, but if Dustin stays, say Jayla goes, and it's Tori, Zach, and Dustin. Dustin tries to get Zach on board to take out Tori. I don't think that's going to work out for Dustin. I think that Tori's going to figure it out, and I think that she can flip the situation in her favor in that particular instance. So I agree. I do not like this move from Tori, and maybe she thought it was a choice between going to the wheel and taking out Dustin, in which case it's a little bit better, but ultimately what we're going to see is that she did have an opportunity to just flat out 3-2-1 the vote and take out Jayla. And the reason that she would have been able to do that is because after going to Jayla, Hunter goes to Jayla and tells Jayla, okay, new plan, we're splitting the vote. Jayla's just like, what? I don't look. I'm just trying to sunbathe. I'm trying to enjoy the pool in the 15 minutes. You can't last 15 minutes of strategizing? Like, what is going on here? So she's just like, whatever. Like, he's like, well, who are we gonna put the votes on? Like, okay, so you're gonna vote Zach, we'll vote Dustin. She's like barely acknowledging what he's saying. At this point, I would have been like, whatever, we should all vote on one person if I'm Hunter.
Yes, exactly.
Cannot rely on Jayla.
How can you put your trust in a crazy person, Hunter? What are you doing? Like, she can barely take you seriously at this point. She's literally in the pool laughing. Okay.
Then Hunter goes to Jess, and he says to Jess, look, new plan. Tori is going to vote for Dustin. I'm going to vote with Tori. You and Jayla are going to put votes on Zach. And I think in Jess's mind, it's like, here it is. This is the way to split our votes and to excuse the fact that he's not voting with us. Like, I knew he was going to screw us. Here we go.
He's going to screw us. Tori's going to screw us. She knows that Tori tried to come for her during the last round. She doesn't trust Tori. She doesn't trust Hunter because he screwed her over in the last 2 rounds. She doesn't trust either one of them, and she thinks this is how they're going to have their cake and eat it too. Tori's going to get Jessica or Jayla out of the game, screw them over. Hunter's not going to have to stand up for the battle match. That's what she thinks is going to have happen here. So after what happened with Jayla and after what happened with Jessica, you think that Hunter would abandon ship here and say, you know what? We're all voting together at this point. Like, let's just get it done. Like, at worst case scenario, if they all vote together, it's 3-2-1 on their side of things, because even if Tori doesn't go along with them, or then they are at 3-3, it's a worst case 3-3 if Tori screws them over and votes the other way. Like, you should just stick together here. I don't even know how he eventually got this to happen. Look, here's the thing. Looking at the votes, I think what he decided, because Hunter and Tori did vote for Dustin. Like, Hunter and Tori were together. They definitely voted for Dustin. He knew that Dustin and Zach were voting for Jayla. So that's 2 votes one way, 2 votes another way. He knew that Jayla and Jessica are not going to vote for Jayla. So I feel like he's like, look, I'm going to go for this. See what happens. I know worst case scenario, Jayla's not getting voted out because the power is in Jessica and Jayla's hands, and they're not going to vote for Jayla. So either some weird tie happens and there's a tie between Dustin and Jayla, or maybe it's a 3-way tie. Who knows? But I think he felt comfortable enough in himself and Tori that he was willing to just say, you know what? Even if it's like 2-2-1-1, I still get what I want. So, and that's what eventually happens.
So Jess says, I don't trust this, and she says, I'm gonna go do my own thing then. And so she runs to Jayla and Dustin, and so she tries to make a play here, which could have worked if either person she was talking to were playing in their best interests. She tells Dustin, it's you. They're trying to get it to you. Hunter is telling me it's going to be Hunter and Tori. They're going to vote for you. We should do something about this. And this is where I do feel like that Dustin dropped the ball a bit, where he essentially says, I was too late. It's in the thing to do anything about this. So I was just gonna be like, all right, whatever. Which I don't know. I feel like if he does vote with Jess and Jayla, if they are able to make 3 votes there, then they would have been able to do something. But it probably would have cost him some trust with Zach, and then Tori probably would have ended up picking him to battle anyway. So I'm not sure it would have made that much of a difference. But I would have liked to see a little more proactive maneuvers here from Dustin because Jess was telling the truth. But this is a completely failed maneuver from Jess, as we described, because Dustin isn't buying it, and Jayla, this is where Jayla is just like, everybody's voting every way and all the things, and this person's voting here. And she just starts laughing. And I don't know who did this camera work and how they got this shot, because it was coming from the pool. Yeah. But they're just like zooming in on Jayla, like rocking back and forth, laughing like, the whole game. What are we doing?
Yeah, she posits at this point that they should all just vote for themselves and everybody go to the wheel. That's what she says. And we get a great confessional from Jessica, who's just like, girl, you're my only ally at this point. Please don't lose it. You have to stick with me at this point. She's talking about voting for herself and going to the wheel. I'm not doing that. That's crazy. The funny part is that even though Jessica goes to Dustin and is like, let's vote for Tori, and he's like not on board with that plan because he thinks it's too late. And Jessica also can't get Jayla to do what she wants. Like Jessica still votes for Tori here, just to be clear about the vote. And this is where I've given the show a ton of praise this entire recap episode, but I will comfort it a little bit here. I really feel like we should have seen the votes from all 6 people here, especially if it's a tie, because so much shit was happening. Literally, like I said, Hunter and Tori did vote for Dustin. Dustin and Zach did vote for Jayla, but Jayla, per her conversation with Hunter by the pool when he came outside to talk to her, did go through with the plan to split the votes, and so she voted for Zach. Jessica was off in Never Neverland, even though nobody that I could see ever went along with her plan to vote for Tori. She did vote for Tori. So it was a 2-2 to 1-1 vote here, with Dustin and Jayla being tied. And I didn't ask Jessica this, but I would like to. What the hell was she thinking voting for Tori? Like, her vote might have really been needed here.
Yeah.
How can you just go off the reservation? Sorry, that's a I shouldn't say that. That's it. She should do something where she knows that people are in on the plan. She shouldn't just be a singleton and vote for whoever the hell she wants.
I mean, to be fair, I think literally everybody did that except for Dustin and Zach. But because here's the thing. I think Jayla, I think the person, like I said, I think the person Jayla said, I know who I'm voting for, I think it was Zach from the beginning. And I don't think what Hunter said changed her mind. I don't think what Jess said changed her mind. I think it was always going to be Zach no matter what. Because if she's choosing like whose plan to go with, I think she would have gone with Jess's plan and gone with Tori. I don't think she was like, secretly, even though Jess isn't on the split vote, I'm going to stick with the split vote plan. I think she was just always going to vote Zach no matter what anybody said. And that's why she had the play style she did throughout the round. And then Jess voting for Tori, I really don't know where this came from. I mean, obviously she wanted to do something like that, but I mean, was she hoping that maybe because of that she wouldn't be available for a battle match? Like, I mean, in her mind, right, it was going to be her, Hunter, and Jayla all voting for Zach or Dustin, whichever one. It was going to be Zach at first, and then the other 3 voting for Jayla. Then Hunter says, no, Tori and I are going to go. Dustin, you and Jayla go Zach. And so she knows for a fact that Zach and Dustin are still going Jayla. So that's 2 votes on Jayla for sure. She knows that Hunter and Tori doesn't know where they're going to go. They're either going to go on Jayla or they're going to go on, Dustin, whoever. Doesn't know. Maybe Tori is going to flip and it's going to be 3 votes on Jayla. Either way, there's at least 2 votes on Jayla. She goes to Jayla, she goes to Dustin. She tries to get them to flip their votes, and neither of them seem to be biting. Maybe there's a scene that was cut from that where they do fake agree to do this, and maybe that's where it came from, because we do cut before we finish this conversation and then we go straight to the vote. But just in her head, I can't figure out the logic of why she follows through with the vote on Tori, what she thought that was going to do. Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to ask her. Hopefully she's the winner of the season and we can have her back and go through an entire game and say, what the hell were you doing at the final 6? So I don't know why she ended up voting for Tori here, but it's very, very funny because the vote is eventually revealed, but they don't reveal that it's 2-2-1-1. They just reveal that it's a tie vote. And unlike the previous rounds, unlike a regular round where you have to stand up if you voted for the person who is in danger here, because it's a tie vote, nobody has to stand up. So the people who did the original votes are not going to have to stand up. They have a revote, and obviously Dustin and Jayla are tied here, and so they cannot vote. Just like rules on Survivor, the people who are tied cannot vote in the next round. But to me, it also introduced an unstable element into play here because, as I said previously, Jayla voted for Zach. So now she can't even lend her vote to vote for Dustin the second time around because she's now a part of the tied contingent, even though Dustin did. So it seemed like to me that Jayla was actually behind the 8 ball here, but ultimately Dustin is the person that is going to get voted off because Jessica goes into the room where they do the revote and she's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Tori actually did flip. Oh my God. Hunter was telling the truth. Tori was telling the truth. She did vote for Dustin. She's like, sorry, Dustin, I vote for you. And then it's like Dustin, and then Zach votes for Jayla.
Right. And here's the thing. And what you were talking about, like, I do feel like we should have got this original vote count some way. We either should have seen it at the start or we should have seen it after the vote was revealed, like a quick little flashback of like, oh, this is how the vote went. Because when I finished the episode, I was immediately just like refreshing the comments. Like, I need to see this vote count because I'm so confused. Like, it was necessary information as far as I was concerned.
It really was. Yeah.
Because when it comes in as a tie, my first thought is Tori didn't do it. She didn't flip.
Right.
And then the first thing we see is Jess being like, Tori flipped. She did it. And I was like, wait, what? How does that make sense?
How did that happen? And that's when I was like, was it 2-2? Like, but then it was like, but I'm like, if it's 2-2, then it should be 2-2. Like, why is it?
Right.
Why is there not another person up there? Like, so then I'm like, did you all vote for crazy people? Ugh. Yeah.
But yes, the tie vote is eventually going to come back 3-1 against Dustin. Now, it's also worth noting that when the tie vote comes out, Jayla is essentially just like, I knew it, or whatever she says. But Dustin is like, all right. I gotta say, Dustin, while great in confessional, not great on the spot.
Not great. Not good, Dustin.
I know what happened here. It was Tori, you screwed me. And at this point, I thought Tori stuck. I thought she was true to him, and so I was like, "Oh no, Dustin, you're turning Tori against you in a tie vote when you need her, and she just stuck with you." But it turned out that was not the case, and he was actually right.
Not the case.
But he was like, "Tori turned on me," and he's like, doing his thing. And but still, I mean, even if he is right that Tori turned on him, I don't know why. Like, what pointing it out does for him, especially because it's really hard to figure out how Tori turns on him and it ends up as a tie like this, right? Because it's either Tori or Hunter, or Tori and Hunter. And if it's Tori and Hunter, then he's just done straight up. If Hunter stayed and voted Jayla, then it was just Tori that turned on you. And so, like, who are you appealing to? Like, where was the sort of pitch to be like, don't do this? Maybe he should have been like, hey, Tori, if you change your vote, I'm choosing you. If you don't go to the wheel, I'm battling you. And then if you feel solid about Zach's vote, which I think he should have, then there's incentive for Tori to go to the wheel there because it's a 1 in 4 chance as opposed to a guaranteed chance of a battle match. Yep. But again, I guess in the moment he wasn't sure, and he just kind of called Tori out.
I do have to call him to the carpet a little bit on this, though, because he's seen other people play badly when they get voted out and go up there and stand there for the battle match selections. He's seen other people do this. He has to recognize that other people have played less than stellar with their words when they are standing up there for the battle match selections. We've talked about it on the show. Not that he's able to see our recaps in real time, obviously, but he's been able to see that people say the darndest things when they're up there under pressure. For him to then be voted out, I guess it's something like you don't know how you're going to react until it eventually happens. Like, this is the first time that anybody has come for Dustin other than that time that Drew called him out. And even then he didn't react really great because he was like, like, did you fuck me, man? He's like, what? What? Me? What are you talking about? And eventually he gets his little line out about you can't spell lost or LOS without, or you can't spell lost without LOS, and then slams his LOS down, which I said was pre-canned at the time. And obviously it was because, as seen here, he's not great under pressure. And so he I really hated this for a variety of reasons, because number one, I feel like he gives Hunter and Jessica the total blank check to vote against him here. Like, he's not even sure who voted for him here. You can tell he's not sure because he says something, and he accuses Tori of having a deal with JLo, which is not true at all. I don't even know where that came from, but he doesn't know. And then he starts to backpedal a little bit. But by going after Tori so publicly in this vote, I feel like he lets Hunter and Jessica off the hook. Like, they're totally fine. Like, they know if we go through with this vote, the worst case that's going to happen is he's going to pick Tori for the battle match. We're totally safe here. So they have all the more reason to vote him out here. And Tori, obviously, she's just like, Dustin's just coming for her, so she has more reason to vote him off here. Like, he didn't do anything with his rage. He just raged instead of like threatening her with his rage, which I feel like would have been more to his liking.
Yeah, I mean, I think this whole round was like so many examples of people just making errors because of how fast it happened throughout the round itself. Tori falling for the lie, Hunter coming up with the split vote plan, Jayla losing her mind, Jess voting for Tori, and then now here Dustin not using this time as well as he could have, and so then the split vote happens, and Jess, Tori, and Hunter all vote for Dustin, and that's it. Dustin has now been voted out. Now he has the ability to choose somebody to battle match, and he's still pounding away.
I will say that I know that the show learns as it goes. I hope in the next season or any season after this that the producers or whoever's directing this particular segment would recognize that this is not good television and tell Dustin to stop clapping into his microphone. Like,
Hands
that is
off the
not
table.
good. Stop doing it. It's not good. I was literally muting the sound here and there because it was driving me crazy so much. My sister even wrote me before I watched the show and said, like, I'm not telling you anything that happened in the game, but Dustin's clapping. He's driving me freaking crazy.
Yeah. So
stop it.
And this is where two more massive errors happen, I believe, because Dustin, he says, you know what? I'm going to choose Tori. Tori is my pick. And now it's important to remember, and again, we have the ability, we're sitting on our couches, we've got hindsight, we've got as much time as we need to think about this. But if you remember, Zach has an LOS. It cannot be played in future rounds. If it's not played now, it will never be played. His number one ally is Tori. In Zach's head, very easy thing to think of here. Zach did not vote for Dustin, thus is not eligible to be chosen for a battle match. Zach is 100% free to use his LOS to prevent Dustin from choosing anybody that Zach doesn't want to be chosen if he so desires. And so if Zach thinks of that, then Zach can prevent this from happening. And here's the worst thing though. Tori, I think, if she had thought of this, then she could have made this happen. Because maybe it's not Zach's life on the line. It's not up to him to remember these things. Saving Tori might help him, might not help him. It's probably better for his game if Tori stays, but maybe it's not, because if he takes her to the end, he's definitely not going to win. So whatever from Zach's perspective. But from Tori's perspective, I fully believe that if she stood up there and said, Zach, help, you have an LOS, please use it, he can't pick you, I think Zach would have used it on her, even though she kind of screwed him over with the vote. I don't think he understands what happened with the vote. I don't think anybody understands what happened with the vote. And in the moment, being called out on the spot, he can't use it in the future, he can't be chosen, I think he probably uses it on her. I don't think he's going to be like, nah, sorry, can't do it. But who knows? But I wish he would have tried.
I wish he would have tried too. Here's the thing. I think that Zach could have given himself something on his resume, which, by the way, he desperately needs at this point. It's important to remember that this season, unlike last season, the jury is being brought in to see the vote outs. All of the jury is there, or as Jayla would call them, the choir. They're all in their red robes and their red masks. They're seeing what's going on. They saw Dustin and Jayla get voted for in the original tie. They saw the revote happen. Dustin was voted out of the game. If at this point he selects Tori, Dustin, if he selects Tori for the battle match and Zach stands up and says, you know what? Actually, I need Tori in the game, Dustin, so I'm going to use my LOS on her. As you said, Tori is now safe from battle match selection. Zach is now safe from battle match selection because he didn't vote for Dustin the first time around. Even though these two allies are not working together, it would be better for Zach if Tori and himself and possibly Dustin remain in the game by Dustin selecting Tori here to battle match against. It guarantees that whoever comes back from that battle match with Zach is going to be in the minority going into the final five. You have to think that Jayla and Jessica and Hunter are going to stick together once again and control who goes home at the final five. It would have been great for Zach's game in front of the jury, no less, to stand up like at Tribal Council, play an LOS on behalf of Tori, save her in the game. Her life is now indebted to Zach. Zach now openly he defies his own ally in Dustin in preventing Dustin from battling Tori, keeps them together, and forces Dustin to select either Jessica or Hunter, who is on the other side of the line as far as alliances go. That would have been great, and it would have been great TV, and it would have been fantastic. Of course, since we're talking about Zach, he couldn't even do that.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think it's even more on Tori because it was her life on the line.
Yeah.
And there might have been reason for Zach to not use it, especially after Tori just like interrogated him and showed that she didn't trust him. Maybe he wouldn't have used it even if she had asked because of that moment. And that also would have been... she would have tried and it would have been good TV. Like, I wish she would have. I have to imagine that she just didn't think of it.
She just didn't think of it. I don't think I think because I thought, here's the thing. When I was thinking about it at home, I was like, oh, well, that would have been great if Zach could have used his LOS for Tori, but then that would have left himself vulnerable for the battle match. And then I'm like, oh, wait, no. He couldn't be picked for the battle match. Like, he had a blank check to do whatever he wanted with the LOS, and now it's just a souvenir sitting on his home. So, I went into this episode thinking that Zach and Jayla were both drawing dead as far as winning the game. I continue to think that they are drawing dead unless they are the final two. So missed opportunities from everybody in this episode.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get to the battle match, and it's going to be between Dustin and Tori. And I thought this was a good one.
I loved it. This was great.
Just the visuals alone were hilarious. When you say go, and the first thing one of the contestants does is they jump up, squat over the thing, and say, I don't have enough pee in me. You've probably got something on your hands here.
This was freaking fantastic. I love this episode, and I love this battle match because this battle match was totally fair. They each had the same tools. To be clear, they have a big block of ice, and they can only use their body and their body heat to melt it. And there's a gold coin in the middle of the block of ice. They cannot throw it, they cannot smash it, but they can melt it with their body. They can use their stomach, their legs, they can lick it, they can spit on it, breathe on it, pee on it, do whatever they want to the ice to get it to melt, and whoever gets to the gold coin and frees the gold coin out of the block of ice is the winner of the battle match. So it was totally objective. There's no arguing about what happened. I thought it was great. I loved it. It was fantastic. And it was also a little funny to watch. So
they're just throwing their clothes off, and they're just like rubbing their bodies like all over this as much as possible.
Oh, gosh.
Like it's so funny to watch.
And eventually they realize, I don't know, like, and I have to say, in the beginning it seemed like Tori was doing a lot more than Dustin. Like, Tori was like going all out. She was a crazy person trying to melt it. It didn't seem like Dustin really had a strategy, but eventually Tori realizes that by her breathing, like like you do when you're in the winter and like you're a little kid and you make fog come out of your mouth. I thought that's what she decided on for a strategy, and Dustin takes that strategy and uses it to the 10th degree by like literally taking his hands around the center of the block of ice and just breathing into it for the longest time, and it pays dividends, Taran.
Yeah, and that was the problem with the rub it all over your body strategy, is that she was not paying attention to which side was being rubbed. And so focusing on one spot is definitely, because it's in the middle, and so if you rub one side and then you rub another side, then in 2 strokes strokes, you've done effectively one, because it's the same distance, and so you need to just focus on one point. So it definitely was, I think, keeping your hands cupped around one particular surface, whether you're breathing into it or doing whatever else, keeping the heat there, focusing on one side, one point of contact is definitely what got Dustin ultimately the win here.
Yeah, this was fantastic too, and they really wanted this. Look, I will tell you that when I watched this episode at home, I actually like practiced a little bit. I'm like, okay, so if I was in this challenge, like, how would I do this? And I started breathing to myself, like, and like after like 5 or 6 breaths, I started to get lightheaded. Like, I don't even know. Like, this went on for 45 minutes. Like, there was a time lapse of 15 minutes, then there was another time lapse of like 30 minutes. Really well done from a battle match standpoint. I loved every part of it. And in the end, we have a winner, Taran.
Yes, Dustin is going to take this one. And I have to say, when I was watching the episode, I forgot about the battle match at first. And so because there was so much about the vote. So when Dustin got voted off, I was like, oh, Dustin. Oh, wait, no, there's a battle match. Hold on.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
And so Dustin is not gone. Instead, it is Tori that is going to leave this round. Admirable job for being such a prominent target for so long. Not even voted out at this point. In fact, I don't think she was ever the one voted out, right? She was always just chosen for a battle match, or was there one round where she was voted out?
She wasn't. Oh, God.
The first round,
first round she was
Kingdom
tied.
round, she was chosen. That was the first time she battle matched. The second round, I can't remember if she was voted out or not.
Who was Kimberly tied with during the first round? Wasn't it Tori? It was, because Drew and company voted for Tori. So she was one of the 2 people tied during the first round with Kimberly. But after that, she was never the target of the vote until now, when she wasn't also the target of the vote. So good for her. Great job. And again, I don't even know. I think people were watching at home going, final 8, final 7, final 6. How is Tori not the target here? And again, if you go back in time, as Tara and I talked about, Tori, and in my opinion, girl, such a mistake. I know maybe it might have been the more sexy move. You really wanted to get Dustin out. You wanted to get Dustin out a long time ago. But if you stay true with Dustin here at the final 6 and you vote with him, Jayla is out of the game. As I said, Jayla voted for Zach the first time around. You have to think that Jayla's going to battle match against Dustin or Zach. She's certainly not going to pick you. And then if Dustin comes back, you still have the majority. If Jayla comes back, I feel like it's better than what happened, which is now we're going into a final 5 of Jayla and Jessica and Hunter against Zach and Dustin. And I have to think that Zach or Dustin is probably going to get voted off. Now, that's not the end of the world, because unlike, other game shows, Sequester always has a battle match, and the last battle match is at the final 5. So presumably Zach and Dustin are going to get voted out here. One of them is, assuming Hunter stays true with Jayla and Jessica, which I have to believe he's going to. So they're going to control who goes home or who gets voted out. That person's obviously going to pick somebody. And if Dustin or Zach, whoever gets voted off, if they win the battle match, then we go into a final 4 effectively tied with 2 pairs of people who that would be really exciting to me. On the other hand, if whoever gets voted off between Dustin and Zach, if they lose the battle match, then we go into a final 4 with the singleton of that pair still in the game, and Hunter and Jayla and Jessica still around, controlling things presumably at the final 4, unless people play to their optimum, Taran. So I'm very excited to see what happens here as we get to the end of the game. We only have one more episode left to go, and these 5 people are left. Would you like to do a power ranking of the people who are left in the game who the chances to win a jury vote? Let's put it that way. If they get to the end, if they get to the final 2, what are their chances to win, Taran?
Okay,
who's number 1?
Winning a jury vote. I think that maybe I'll say Hunter is first, to be honest. We hear from Tori that he's a big threat to win in the end, that he's the biggest threat left apart from herself. If she has any sort of finger on the pulse of the jury, then that could be an indicator of where he is. He definitely played a great round this time. I think I think that he can speak about his game if he can prevent himself from being too cocky about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
I think that he can present his case case fairly well. He was definitely very ratty throughout the game, but I think that works in his favor, again, as long as he's able to avoid just being so aggressively cocky about it. So I might say Hunter number one. I think I have a hard time figuring out where people see Dustin. I think that he's been playing pretty well in the last few rounds, but up until that point, he wasn't exactly well respected. People really didn't like his debate thing, which obviously everybody was there for. And I that definitely says I do not have faith in him in the final two scenario to plead his case well. I think that he'll get up there and be like, all right, so what I did throughout the game is I just like doing laundry. I was in control of everything. And I feel like, what is happening here? I don't think he's going to do well with the final two speech. So I don't know. I feel like him and Jess might be up in the air. I think Jess, both of them haven't had respect from the rest of the house for a decent portion of the game, but I think Jess is more likable and more capable of selling herself than Dustin is, but she also wasn't great at the public speaking debate part.
I take issue with that. As I talked about when that challenge happened, she herself said, "Look, I'm not great at public speaking, but I felt like she was pretty good. I don't think she was great, but I thought she was pretty good.
She
was serviceable. Yeah, she was definitely better than Dustin. I personally would have Jessica number one. Probably Dustin number two, and I'm still not buying Hunter at number three. Jayla and Zach are obviously 4 and 5 to me, but I basically with Hunter, it's like show me, don't tell me. Like, yeah, he had one good round this round, and I did think he played particularly well this round, but he's going to have to get to the end, and a lot of people just don't like Hunter. I hear some people do, but other people don't really like him, and if he gets up there and he's really cocky in the final two, I don't know that it's going to play really well, especially if I remember how he was during the debate round, and he just talked really loudly over people and like tried to get people to understand his point of view. So I don't know that that's also going to play well, especially if the jury starts asking questions about who deserves it more, and the person who's in the final two with him starts coming at him and explaining why he is a chicken shit and hasn't voted with the majority, and he was scared to death of battle matches and would never stay loyal to anybody. He only cares about himself. Like, I can see him getting really riled up by that.
Yeah, so I think I would say Hunter first. I think Erica's in the jury campaigning for him. I think that he does have some amount of respect to some degree, at least.
But does Erica know by now that Hunter was actually not loyal to her? She doesn't want to look like a fool.
It's true, but I think that at this point, I think that she would have been mad in the moment, but I think that at this point, I think she'd be like, well, he played well then. Like, I think she'll turn, because she has no other options. Like, if she's mad at Hunter, she has nobody left in the game.
Yeah, but I feel like she does, because Jessica did what she asked. She wanted to get Dustin out of the game. Jessica was one of the people that stood up and actually did vote for Dustin and got him out of the game. Yes, he won the battle match, but he was voted out here. My point in saying that is because, yes, I hear what you're saying, and in normal reality time, I feel like that Erica might realize that Hunter was actually not loyal to her and would get over it. But this is sequester time, and remember, like, Erica just got voted off an hour and a half ago, and like they're gonna have the final two in like less than 24 hours. I don't know if that's enough time for Erica to get over find out about Hunter's betrayal and then get over it in time for her to vote for her.
But I also feel like there's enough plausible deniability to be like, well, he might have told you that, but he never voted for, like, he never actually did this. I can accept that, yeah. And especially because it'll probably be coming from Cameron the most. And it's like if she like is mad at Hunter, then that means that like what Cameron said worked, because Cameron wants to drive a wedge between them. So I don't know. But I would say my guess would be Hunter number one, Jess number two, Dustin number three, Zach number four, Jayla number five. I don't think Jayla can win.
I don't think Jayla can win either, and I don't think Zach can win either. I really don't.
Well, I think Zach can win over Jayla.
Well, yeah, I guess I don't think it's going to be Zach and Jayla at the end. I just don't.
You never know.
I for reasons. I don't. What? Who knows? I've been wrong before. What do you?
But in terms of Jayla, I think the way that she played this round was just anybody that saw what she was doing in that pool is just going to be like, what? And like even her closest ally in the game is like, what? Just like in terms of her gameplay, I feel like it's not there. I feel like there's not going to be a lot of respect. I don't think she's going to be able to sell her case very well. She just we just saw what Jayla selling her case was, and nobody cared. Nobody in fact, it did the reverse of what she intended, and that people were like, just get me out of here. So that's not great. Personal connections, she doesn't seem to have many on the jury. She's got Jess, if Jess is on the jury, and nobody else, not even like Kristen, like nobody really connected to Jayla on a personal level to where they would want to overlook some of the strategic whatevers to vote for her. So I just feel like from every aspect, it's not coming together for me there. Zach, at least, I think, is liked by a lot of people. He's a likable guy. He's very boring. He doesn't have much strategy, but at least he can speak like, I did a jury move here with Jess, and I had an LOS, and I played with these people, and I was loyal, and I had to flip around, and it would be boring, but I think that it's still like it's a feasible case.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I think. In terms of who I think will win, it depends. It depends on how much we're willing to read into the edit.
I feel like Audrey cares about the edit. I feel like that she wants the winner of the season to be seen as a serious player. Like that's why I feel like Zach is not the winner of the season. I don't think she would keep in these confessionals from the various contestants talking about how you have no cojones, you have no spine, you have no conviction to your game if he were actually the winner of the show. I just don't buy that.
Yeah, like if there is any sense of like conventional winner edit here for Sequester, then I think Jess is number one with a bullet. She's had the most positive edit, I think, of the five of them by far. And I think that Zach can't be Zach. Jayla, from an editing standpoint, it's possible that just like, because how do you edit around this? I don't know how. And she was edited very positively at the start.
Yeah, she was edited positively at the start. I will also give Jayla kudos in that her confessionals are very fun. Like when she's on, when she's talking to us as just us, the TV viewing audience, I enjoy her very much. A couple of times she has irritated me, but most of the time I enjoy what she's doing in confessional. Even if she is talking nonsense, she's still being engaging and funny and personable and all of that. So I'm with you. I don't know how if Jayla is the winner, I don't know how you edit around it, and you just kind of say, this is who she is.
Yeah, and I think Hunter and Dustin both have had good moments and bad moments. I think their bad moments are also things that can't really edit out Hunter yelling about being left out of a room, because it's a big dramatic thing that happened. You're not going to hide that from us. You can't hide one of the best scenes from the opening episode where Dustin is awkwardly in the pool, even though that doesn't fit with a winner edit, because you're not going to hide. That's a great moment, almost especially if it comes from your winner. So I feel like either of them are contenders here, and I think that either of them can work as winners. In fact, I do think there is some sort of through line here with Hunter, the fact that they really focused on him and Erica and their alliance at the start and how they were playing the middle. That was a big focus of the early episodes.
And they talked about it later on, at the final 8, final 7. They talked about the undesirables when I had completely forgot about it. So yeah, that's a good point about Hunter as well.
Yeah.
Hunter could be the winner of season 3 of Sequester. I will say this, that if he is the winner of season, I've been giving Hunter a lot of shit up until now, but this was a fantastic episode from him, and I even tweeted about it. It was really great to see him with conviction and a point of view and say, this is what I want to get done in the game. He wasn't just reacting to what other people wanted to do and going along with it. It was this is what I want to do in the game, and I was definitely here for it. And that's what I'm looking for in reality TV contestants on Sequester.
Yeah. And then, man, in terms of pairings of who gets to the final 2, knowing what the final 4 consists of, that it's the circle game essentially, that you're gonna point at the person you want to vote out, and then that person, whoever gets the most finger points, essentially whoever gets all 3 of the other people to vote them out, then chooses one person to drag with them out of the game, leaving 2 people in the game. It's very difficult. So how it played out last time in season 2, at least, is that there was one pair, and then there were 2 kind of singles that kind of hated each other to a degree, but that because there was one pair, the other 2 needed to stick together. They didn't, and so the pair ended up going into the finals. If Jayla and Jess are both in the final 4, that's a very, very strong position to be in, because if Jayla and Jess have both been saying for a few rounds we'll never vote for each other, then there's a lot of sort of, you know, you have to bluff the other pair into thinking that you're the stronger pair.
Right.
And so they have a lot of strength in that argument. We're never going to vote for each other. It's going to be one of you that's going to choose the other person. So I could see that being a strong pair. Then it just depends on, like, is the person that gets voted out vindictive? Will they follow through with a threat that says, if you pick me, then I'll take you? And then if they do pick them, maybe they do end up choosing somebody else. Who knows? But I think that's the strongest pair that we have to look at here.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't, just to be clear, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Hunter will necessarily side with Jessica and Jayla at the final five. I think it's very likely, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. Obviously, going into the final five, it looks like Hunter is the swing vote. You have Jessica and Jayla on one side, Zach and Dustin on the other side, and Hunter. So where does he go? I think he sticks with Jayla and Jessica here and obviously votes off one of the boys. The boys are going to pick one of the three in the three to battle match against, and the result of that will dictate a lot about what happens going into the final four.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, you know, I think it depends on how somebody like Hunter would look at this situation, because theoretically he is in the middle of...
Did he watch last season is what
Right.
I want. Like, how well do people remember what happened at the final four last year?
Right. Theoretically, he's in the middle of Dustin and Zach and Jess and Jayla. And as I pointed out, Jess and Jayla are a much stronger and tighter pair than Zach and Dustin. And even though you might look at the two pairs and say, this one is more dangerous, ultimately, the tighter pair is what's more dangerous in the final four. The pair that is less likely to vote against each other is the pair that you need to be the most wary of heading into the final four. And also, being the swing vote at the final five puts Hunter into a position that gives him some leverage to potentially make deals with people for the final four. People like Zach, who might stick to those deals. So if it's Zach and Dustin and it's Jess and Jayla, and Hunter is able to make a deal with Zach that they choose each other in the final four no matter what, if he sides with them, then that's, I think, his best move here. Take out Jayla. Ideally, take out Jayla because she's such a wonderful goat at this point, an appetizing goat to take to the end. So if you remove her from the equation, it's harder. And then hopefully you have Zach, and hopefully you can pull at something. You know, Jess and Dustin would need to pair up together. They don't trust each other that much. Are they going to be loyal to each other? Is one of them going to cut the other one when you have a deal with Zach? I feel like that's his best foot forward here, and I think he's in the best position moving forward because he is in the middle here.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about the Final Four this year. I didn't really understand what the Final Four and the mechanism for voting people out was last year, but to me, this is the best part of Sequester to me, as it's come to be in like modern day, before like they had the online version, and what it's like on television now is this Final Four, like the mechanisms of it about like who you bring with you to the Final Four, who wins the battle match of the Final Five, what they do in the Final Four. Are you able to create a tie? If you are able to create a tie, then the people, remember, same thing like as normal ties. If you go to a tie and you revote, the people who are voted for in the tie are immune. So now there's only two people on the wheel. And are you willing to spin the wheel like in the revote? Otherwise, you're going to have to flip your vote. Like, so many great aspects of the game all rolled into one at the Final Four. So I'm so excited to see what happens in the finale. I hope that Jessica wins. I will be totally fine if Dustin wins. I will be moderately okay with it if Hunter wins. I just like, I'm like kind of like that came. It would be like a little. Somebody said it in the chat earlier. It's like a little bit like Chris Underwood. Like you don't even like he's not even like you don't even consider him a possible winner for the longest time. And then at the end, he starts playing really well. And you're like, oh, I guess you can be the winner of the show now. So Hunter could be a feasible winner for me, but there's no chance I will accept Jayla or Zach as the winner of Sequester.
I mean, Jess as the winner would be very interesting to me because I think her game most closely resembles Kim from last year of the people we have left, in terms of just ability to stay under the radar, have a couple of individual relationships that carry her to some degree, wins a key battle match, which is I think like the first one she was even a part of toward the end of the game, and then kind of slide in as the underdog, likable underdog underdog that takes the win.
Also, if she can survive like Final 5 and not end up in a battle match at Final 5, I feel like Jessica is the person amongst the Final 4 to not be voted out or dragged to the jury, because everyone really likes her and they don't fear her. I don't think there's any chance that Jessica ends up as the third place finisher. I think that it's far more likely that Jayla would end up as the third place finisher, because she's definitely had beef with some of the contestants who are still left in the game. Jessica, not so much. And as we talked about previously when we were talking about contestants, even though Jessica isn't necessarily respected at this point, she's liked enough by the jury. And I think that would save her going into a potential Final 4, Final 2 scenario. And then at the Final 2, if she's liked enough, that could turn into respect and she could possibly win. But that's what I want to happen, not what I necessarily not what necessarily will happen.
The interesting thing for me is that if Jess does win, I feel like I've learned a lot about the ideal way to play Sequester, which was the main question going into my head when I started the season after having watched season 2. And because if a similar game wins 2 times in a row, then I'll feel kind of comfortable in coming to the conclusion that this is probably the ideal way to play if you're in this archetype, if you can manage this kind of style of gameplay. So I'm very interested, very curious to see how this plays out.
It's ultimately, at the end of the day, Sequester is like other reality shows in that it's a social game. And I know that Jessica in her confessionals at least talked about, building relationships with people and making sure that people like her. And she's had a nice personality. She hasn't gotten mad at anybody. She's not a hothead like me or Jayla or some people. Even Dustin, I feel like, can be a hothead at different times, or at least a little bit off-putting. But I don't feel like Jessica has been like that. And as I said, it's a social game. And I feel like that of the people left, she's the most social player. So we'll see.
All right, we'll see. Well, next week, I believe the finale will be airing on Wednesday instead of Sunday, and that's going to be the following Wednesday. So
10 days from now.
Yeah. Just like a week and a couple more days. So it's not in 2 days. It's a week after 2 days.
Well, remember, there's a lot to pack into the finale. We have to get through a Final 5 vote, then a Final 5 battle match, then the Final 4 vote, and then they're going to drag whoever gets voted off at Final 4 is going to drag someone to the jury in third place, leaving us with a Final 2. Then they bring in the jury for the Final 2 questions, and we're going to have a winner. So I'm excited about that. Insofar as our coverage of the season finale of Sequester, obviously, as we said, it's going to take place January 29th. Wednesday at 8 p.m. That's when it's going to air for the show. As for us, we are sort of vacillating between covering it right after the finale or covering the next day, as we have done previously in the past. We're kind of waiting for Rob and our behind-the-scenes producer, Scott St. Pierre, to get back to us on what's open on RHAP that day. And when we know, I will tweet it out and tell you guys.
Yeah, we'll either be live after the finale or the night after the finale. Yeah. And just make sure you keep updated on Twitter at Armstrong Taran and at OneLuckyGay. We will let you know when it will be happening, but make sure you tune in for that. If you are interested in some Big Brother talk, then you should tune in tomorrow night, Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. We will be discussing the year in Big Brother 2019, which includes Big Brother Celebrity 2, Big Brother Canada 7, and Big Brother 21. So we'll be talking about, we'll rank the seasons, which one was the best. We'll talk about the players, who were the best players of the year, who were your favorites of the year. We've got some superlatives, like best blindside, who was the most gullible, who was the best liar, that sort of thing. Lots of fun, so make sure you tune in for that. And if you want to contribute, I do have the survey linked on my Twitter, again, at Armstrong Taran. It's pinned at the top of my account right now. You have until tomorrow night to fill it out if you want the data to be counted in tomorrow's podcast.
Yes, Melissa will be there. The chat is anxious to know if Melissa will be there.
Of course.
Melissa, of course she will be. It's the LFC podcast. What do you want from me? Queen Melissa will be there, I will be there, and Taran will be there.
Yes. Should be a lot of fun, so make sure you tune in. Anything else you wanted to bring up here, Brent?
No, great episode of Sequester. Audrey, you've outdone yourself this season. I know that necessarily the cast hasn't been always giving us what we wanted, but the show itself has been really, really freaking great, and I am very psyched to see what happens in the finale. So I love Sequester more than ever. You're doing a great job.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time.